This is Wisdom Anime Recap. This means war. A car drives past a lamp, emitting a golden light that cuts through the thick fog. It pulls over near a motorcycle parked in the middle of nowhere. A man steps out of the car to examine it. He looks right. Elsewhere, Aoi sets a timer and waits. The man sneaks through the foggy streets in search of something. He reveals a gun in his hand as he comes to a small bridge that leads to a bright light, a tower. Inside, he follows a hallway to a balcony. Aoi plays a fiddle poorly on a ledge above. The man holds his ears in pain and demands Aoi to stop. Aoi asks why the man won't greet him after all this time. The man asks how Aoi knew he'd been tailing him. Aoi evades the question and asks how his people didn't know he'd been investigating them. The man asks Aoi if he belongs to the Japanese military. Aoi scoffs and tells him he's been following him to get to the warlord Zhongwu Liu. He says he suspects the man is here to acquire arms for him. The man tries to draw his gun, but Aoi tells him to stop. He says it would be a mistake. Aoi assures him he's only here to investigate the kidnapping of the head of the Kaburagi conglomerate. He tells him to leave since he's likely not involved and he's doing a poor job tailing him. The man gets impatient and draws his gun. He's still convinced Aoi is an enemy of Zhongwu Liu. Aoi assures him he's wrong, but the man shoots. Aoi dodges by leaping off the ledge and landing behind him. The man shoots again, but the bullets have no effect. Suddenly, he and Aoi teleport to a window on the side of the building, where Aoi holds the man's wrist to keep him from falling. He looks down, where the wind blows and cars pass on the streets below. He panics and asks Aoi if he's a devil. Aoi asks the man why he thinks he's his enemy. He tells him he only wants to talk. The man agrees. A clock tower strikes midnight. Yukina is being pulled by Natsume on a rickshaw. She describes the city, Shanghai, a new, motley, overdeveloped city, the Devil City. They arrive at an alleyway where Natsume looks at a photograph of the head of the Kaburaki conglomerate. He says he can't confirm if he's near, but he says there's a car approaching them. The military police are here too, but they're not here to help them. Kazura is nearby. They can hear each other's thoughts. He tells everyone to stay put and wonders why Aoi hasn't contacted them yet. They hear gunshots in the distance. Natsume says one of the military police was shot. A car races past them through the alley and down the street, running over their rickshaw. Natsume can't confirm if Kaburagi was in the car. Kazura pulls up in a second car and tells them to get in. They chase the speeding car through the streets, narrowly avoiding accidents, to Suzhou Bay. When they arrive, the car is suspiciously parked next to a building. Yukina runs out to investigate, but Kazura and Natsume tell her to stop. She tries to turn around, but the car blows up before she can get far. Natsume runs to check on her and finds she survived relatively unscathed. Suddenly, Aoi drives past them on the motorcycle from the start, over the fire and around the corner. Kazura follows him but stops when he sees a man hide Kaburaki under a sheet on a boat covered by a tarp in Suzhou Bay. He runs to the dock and jumps in the boat, but one of the men kicks him off board. He hangs from a rope attached to the boat, but they pull a gun on him. Aoi beeps his horn from a bridge above and jumps off, motorcycle and all, onto the boat, knocking one man off board and crushing the tarp. Kazura fights with the second man, forcing him to drop his gun. Aoi checks below the tarp for Kaburaki, but finds a third gunman who shoots him. Time appears to slow, and the bullet changes trajectory in mid-air, missing him entirely. Aoi and Kazura neutralize both men in their confusion. Aoi shows Kazura the man under the tarp, telling him it's not Kaburagi. Kazura says the man was a decoy. Kaburagi is elsewhere. Aoi looks at his watch and says he just ran out of time. Kazura asks why Aoi deviated from the plan. Aoi says he knew they would use the river to escape, but Kazura censures him anyway for acting independently. Aoi asks Kazura why he didn't use his powers. He tells him the situation would have justified it. Kazura says he only uses his powers when he has no other choice. Later, they four meet with Shinichiro to play Go under a pavilion. He asks why they failed their mission. Kazura says they didn't expect the military police to be where they expected to find Kaburaki. Shinichiro tells them he's yet to gain the military's trust. He also questions the group's trust in one another. He asks Yukina what information she could gather from the 3 men they captured earlier. Yukina thinks Kaburagi was transported to one of Zhongwu Liu's military headquarters. Shinichiro is surprised. He says his army fled last month and hasn't been seen since. Yukina says Kaburagi was taken to a fort at the banks of a river east of Nanking, where Zhongwu Liu's main forces have come together, but she can't be sure if it's the main base of operation. Shinichiro tells the man behind him to keep the 3 men detained. AOE says Natsume confirmed Kaburagi was at the fort Yukina suspected. Shinichiro says Zhongwu Liu changed his negotiation demands. Kazura is confused. He says Liu had demanded that the Japanese military disarm completely. Shinichiro says they just want money now. AOE asks why Liu decided to change his mind. Shinichiro explains that Liu captured Kaburagi to procure better weapons, ones capable of matching the strength of the Nationalist Party. AOI is catching on. He says Liu changed his demands out of impatience with the Japanese, who wouldn't hand over their weapons. Kazura says it would take too long to buy weapons from the Americans or the Europeans. He calls the plan flawed. Shinichiro tells them they're both right. He also explains Liu doesn't want the money from the Kaburagi family, but the Japanese government. They all give one another concerned looks. AOE calls the mission an ordeal. Shinichiro tells him not to worry. So long as they bring back Kaburagi, it will all come to an end. He tells them that the military policeman that got shot earlier passed away. He tells them all to watch themselves as they have a difficult mission ahead. Shinichiro finds this funny, so does Aoi, and they share in a bizarre, stilted laugh. Natsume explains they'll have to take on a squadron of 2,000 people. Aoi comments that they'll likely also be hiding in the forest across the bay, not just in the fort. Natsume explains where he found an underground escape route, but it's useless since the military is using the building it leads to, and it's far from where Kaburagi is being held. He's on the 2nd floor being watched by 2 guards. Aoi says this doesn't worry him. On the wall facing the bay, 2 guards hear a gunshot in the distance and take cover. They don't know who took the shot, but they're convinced it's just a hunter. Natsume reloads his rifle across the bay from a bush in the forest. He aims to take a second shot. It lands next to the first one on a roof in the fort. Both shots left a strange yellow liquid. In the back of a plane, Aoi and Kazura sit in silence. Aoi comments on the darkness outside now that night has fallen. Kazura responds curtly. Aoi says the darkness and altitude reminds him of a book by Edogawa Rampo called Watcher in the Attic. Kazura says he's familiar with the book. Aoi is surprised, but Kazura tells him he hates the story. He compares the attic in the story to their powers. He says that the man looking down on the other rooms from his attic felt a sense of superiority over the other tenants. He wonders why people enjoy having an advantage over their opponents. He believes an even fight is more meaningful. Aoi can't believe this is the reason Kazura doesn't use his powers. Kazura tells him he's only willing to use it if his comrades' lives are in jeopardy, and that they're not as useful as Aoi believes. Yukina and Natsume are still in the forest. Yukina places her hand on Natsume's shoulder and looks up. Her vision zooms and she can see Aoi and Kazura's plane. They both jump and open their parachutes, landing undetected on the roof with the yellow liquid, which now glows a fluorescent green, their landing target. Yukina lets out a sigh of relief. Behind the wall, Aoi and Kazura disguise themselves and speak to one another in Chinese as they walk past the scores of guards. Yukina gives them directions through thought transfer. They arrive at the building where Kaburagi was being kept and walk past the 2 guards, under the guise of food delivery, up the stairs and into a room where an old man in a suit is smoking a cigar. Kazura addresses him as Kaburagi. Aoi tells him they're here to rescue, in spite of the fact that Kaburagi seems comfortable here. Kaburagi says they've been unexpectedly kind to him. Kazura asks him if he made a deal with Zhongwu Liu. Kaburagi says he didn't have a choice. Aoi asks if he was the one who suggested Liu change his demands. Kaburagi again says he had no choice. Aoi accuses him of arranging for his company to procure the weapons for Liu. Kaburagi scowls at him. Aoi says he's impressed Kaburagi was able to turn this situation into a business venture, but he tells him there's many on the outside who are upset about getting left out of this deal. He thinks of the man he spoke to at the start. Kazura says Zhongwu Liu's faction is on the brink of collapse. He tells Kaburagi that giving them more weapons would only prolong the inevitable, increasing the casualties unnecessarily. Kaburagi asks who they are, but they don't answer. Aoi reveals a sedative hidden in the meal platter he brought. Kaburagi tries to run, but Kazura knocks him out. They carry him past the guards under the guise of taking him to the medic. They say he collapsed on his own. Yukina tells them the real food detail is on their way now, so they need to move quickly. Just then, an alarm rings and the soldiers start to rush around. Aoi wonders how they managed to figure things out so quickly. Yukina tells them to reach the castle walls so she can help. On their way there, they turn a corner too quickly, alerting some guards, forcing Aoi to use his powers, wasting some he may need later. Kazura accuses him of being too dependent on them. Before they can reach the castle walls, they're cornered by a group of guards. Natsume draws his gun once more and blows up a bag they left on the roof after landing to create a distraction. Aoi uses the last of his power to deflect bullets and disarm some of the guards while Kazura carries Kaburagi away. They make it into a building, just as Aoi runs out of time and lock themselves in. The guards try to break the door down. Just then, more explosives go off just outside the building they're hiding in. Natsume says it's a real attack, an enemy raid. The guards panic as the explosives go off. The Nationalist Party has finally found this location. Yukina tells them their exit has been destroyed by the explosion. Aoi demands Kazura use his power now. He tells him to lower his pride because the team needs him. Kazura agrees and tells Yukina he needs something to use as a point of focus. Kazura grabs Kaburagi and Aoi and teleports them on top of the wall. He searches for the point of focus across the bay. Yukina is shining the headlights of the car. Kazura teleports in front of the car, but they tumble down a hill. Aoi is very amused. Kazura tells Aoi he doesn't plan to make a habit of using his powers. The Nationalist Army continues ravaging Zhongwu Liu's fort. Aoi and Shinichiro speak to one another by some pillars. Aoi asks if Shinichiro was the one who told the Nationalist Party where the fort was. Shinichiro says he did it because Liu was a nuisance to the Nationalist Party, so he knew they would attack. Aoi points out that the Japanese government has a strained relationship with the Nationalist Party, but Shinichiro assures him he hasn't violated any national treatise. He says his only goal is peace in Asia. Aoi wonders if Shinichiro wanted anyone who saw them use their powers dead. Shinichiro doesn't deny it, but he says their powers are a government secret. Aoi tries to protest, but Shinichiro tells him not to. He says that what happened was inevitable. He tells Aoi that the men who died were all still soldiers who knew what they were getting into, despite belonging to a rural faction. Not to mention that their actions proved their use to their superiors. He calls it a win-win situation. Aoi hands him a document he stole from Kaburagi that proves he planned to use his company to sell Zhongwu Liu weapons. Shinichiro wonders why Aoi gave him this document. Aoi explains he doesn't respect Kaburagi's lack of loyalty. He sold weapons to both sides. They both find this funny and share the same bizarre, stilted laugh once more. Shinichiro jokes that he wouldn't want Aoi to hate him more than he already does. Finally, they say their goodbyes.